All you have to do is ride down 28th Street and you will still see boarded buildings.
Decaying structures along West Louisville's 28th Street offer compelling and chilling reminders of a critical turning point in the city's life.
I'm on the phone calling the Courier-Journal to tell them I got it covered.
Former reporter Merv Albisman's compelling accounts made front page news 50 years ago this month. He was in the middle of the violent chaos.
And I'm right back here.
And so was Ken Clay, who owned a record and bookstore near the corner of 28th and Greenwood. That's where the trouble began.
I had people who've never come to my store before. They just came in, bought everything. We had a great day.
Then something changed.
The tension was high nationwide.
Manfred Reed was also on 28th Street that day and felt the thickness in the air. Earlier that month, at the corner of 23rd and Broadway, his escalated encounter with Louisville police added to the tension.
I was arrested, let me put it that way. That disturbed the community because of my status. I was a real estate broker.
Reed's arrest, combined with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination weeks before, and the reality of other cities going up in flames, all contributed to a highly charged, volatile environment. A daytime rally for social justice near this intersection turned chaotic.
Somebody dropped a bottle off the roof. When it hit, it made a sound that sounded almost like a rifle sound.
And suddenly the policeman who was laying back in the cut came into the crowd.
It was a climate at that time.
And there was a county policeman on the side of the porch with a double-barrel sawed-off shotgun. And he immediately turned and put it right in my face.
No explanation.
No explanation, he didn't say a word. I looked in his eyes and I never saw so much hate through his eyes, you know.
The officer puts the gun right there.
Yeah.
No word.
No word, he didn't say a word.
Crazy. It was crazy.
My family had lived in the Parkland area from 1910 until 1970.
Family members of former Metro Council member Tom Owens operated a nearby Virginia Avenue funeral home, and his grandfather ended up in harm's way.
And there was some banging on the side of his car, but some other folks, African American folks, helped him to divert into an alley.
Several days of disturbances resulted in 2,000 National Guardsmen being called out by the state, more than 400 people arrested, and 2 teenagers dead. 14-year-old James Groves fatally shot by Louisville police, and 19-year-old Matthias Browder fired upon by a business owner for an alleged act of looting at a liquor store.
And lo and behold, I saw my son. My son was in that crowd.
Lawrence Montgomery was among the fearful parents.
I was successful in getting him out of there.
However, silent aftermath still lingers along this once thriving corridor.
Part of that
Impacted by decision makers like Metro Council President David James.
growing up, that was the epicenter of where I lived.
David James wasn't alone. That part of the story when you join us Monday at 6. In West Louisville, Steve Crump for Wave 3 News. Amplified blight loudly defines places and spaces once known as Louisville's 28th Street shopping district.
As a child when I was growing up, that was the epicenter of where I lived.
Metro Council President David James represents this corridor in the Parkland neighborhood. He blames 1968's rioting that started here on restrictive housing patterns.
I would say redlining had a lot to do with that. And so from the early 1900s till the riots, that was a way that government, City of Louisville, federal government, and state government segregated and held back African Americans. And so that's why Louisville is the #1 segregated city in the country.
Accelerated departures from inner city neighborhoods followed the alarming headlines.
Now, it was not an African American flight to the suburbs. It was a white flight to the suburbs.
Never felt uncomfortable. Knew the people knew you.
Tony and Pellizzeri's family got out by 1979. The framed image of his father, Tony Sr., hangs front and center at this well-known pizza restaurant he owns in Charlestown, Indiana. But back in 1968, his dad's business, Tony's Meat Market, stood at the corner of 28th and Dumenial. Today, it's a community garden.
You know, he raised 5 kids out of there and did real well. Mid to late 70s, and things started to slow down a little bit.
Collateral damage from 68 also meant a number of West Louisville churches eventually closed their doors. And that was the case with prominent places of learning like Loretto and Flagey High.
They damaged a lot of the buildings around here.
Physical scars are one thing, but a half-century later, a weighty emotional toll remains seen and unseen.
Well, I think that what happened at 28th and Greenwood 50 years ago still impacts our community.
The impact here in the 40211 zip code has resulted in 12% unemployment and a median income of just over $26,000 a year. Decades later, many are still asking, what will it take to turn it all around?
We need to have a cross-section of people there who bring in different ideas and different solutions.
Suggestions for survival come your way tomorrow at 6. In West Louisville, Steve Crump for Wave 3 News. Deep scars haven't healed at the tipping point of where trouble exploded at 28th and Greenwood.
Looking back, you can see the racial tensions.
Kevin Shaheen's family business didn't fold the tent in West Louisville following the city's riots of 1968. His grandfather opened this enterprise at 26th and Portland back in 1922.
There's a lot of great people here. There's a lot of great families, and they support us. And you know, we respect everybody that walks through the door, and everybody respects us.
Respect was a stated goal voiced by Louisville civil rights leaders during the 1960s. Among the African Americans on the front lines, retired Pastor Charles Kirby of Southern Star Baptist, who was on 28th Street when tempers boiled over.
It was pretty rough.
Stop the killing!
Today's activists advocating for improvements across the Parkland community see themselves facing the same struggles. Chanel Helm is connected to the Black Lives Matters organization.
You see little hope, you see little fight back. We're trying, and it's scary.
Fear brought on by the presence of poverty, crime, and social instability. 50 years ago, this thriving corridor just south of Virginia and north of Dumenial had a number of successful businesses: an A&P grocery store, Key Market, Oak Drug, Vines Record Store, and Bank of Louisville. Recent history dictates that improvements are seen as long-shot prospects. But long term, what will it take to make a lasting difference?
People have like these ideas, and they know what they want to see in their communities. It's just people continually keep telling them no.
Politicians have to listen to them and find out what they want.
In the end, it's going to require government working with private sector in order to generate investment in West Louisville.
I mean, look at it. There's nothing here much, to see. There have been some efforts to try to rebirth it, but it hasn't really caught on.
Unlike other parts of the city, home ownership here barely exists, and the challenge comes in transitioning a neighborhood of renters into a place of valued stakeholders.
We do that by listening to all the people who are involved. We do that by being inclusive.
Turning it around remains a tall order, considering how headlines dominated a locale that seems to be forgotten. Moving forward now requires a lasting partnership fueled not only by the commitment of government, but also a strong will of the people. In West Louisville, Steve Crump for Wave 3 News.